Morning glory and evening grace, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. I'm joined this beginning of the program by Bret Baier, host of Fox News Special Report every night at 6 p.m. Bret, welcome. You've been in the business a long time. You arrived in D.C. on 9/11, I believe, as the Pentagon reporter. I've been doing it for 35 years. I've seen a lot of bad stuff, covered the L.A. riots, 9/11, everything that 10/7 murders, all sorts of stuff. I've never had a colleague assassinated before. I think you've been doing a fabulous job, and I want to thank you for it because you brought in people like Ben and Mary Catherine and Guy Benson, his contemporaries, to talk about him. But how do we cover this story, and how long do we cover this story for?
Well, first, obviously it was a major gut punch. A lot of folks dealt with Charlie. I had talked to him a few weeks ago. And really, he was close to a lot of folks here. So it's uniquely tough for our business and colleagues. But it is really important. I think there's the investigation and figuring out all the who, what, where, when, and today lended a little bit more information into that. But then there's the fallout from it and the political impact and the reverberation, not only here in the country, but around the world. And so as you see these vigils all over the place, I think it's very powerful. And there is some kind of, silver lining to what has been a, dark week plus.
There's one aspect of it. I talked to Justice Amy Coney Barrett yesterday, long interview, did two of them in the last week because she got a new book out, listening to the law. And I talked to her as a parent with young children about the web. You raised two fine boys. I love my two fine boys. They're older than yours. And I'm glad I didn't have to deal with this. Have you talked to parents of younger children who have to deal with this dark web craziness?
Yeah, well, first of all, my two boys were shaken up, 18 and 15, and they were folks who listened to Charlie online and had a knowledge of him from his sites and all of that. And then that day obviously saw that very public and gruesome shooting online. And, it took a lot to talk them through all of that. And I can only imagine, younger kids and being exposed to that. Hopefully not too many were, but a lot were because it made its rounds very quickly on that day.
So what do you expect of the political effect of this to be? And I return to my original question. I can't stop thinking about it and talking about it, but I don't know when it will be appropriate to do so.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think we're still, in the process of processing. Tonight I have a common ground with Senators Dave McCormick and John Fetterman, who asked to be on set together to talk about the climate and how, things need to change. And that was an ask that came to us. We didn't go to them. So I think there's more talking to do, more things to talk about. I do think that we don't fully have a sense of the political impact. I know the stats are pretty amazing. Charlie wanted to expand to something like 1,500, of his chapters, and now there's 30,000 plus who've called up and said, I want to start a chapter. And, that impact and that expansion, what does it mean? Politically, what does it mean? I do know anecdotally that people have reached out to me and said, churches were filled with young people over the weekend, and there was some kind of thing happening. And I've heard that from a lot of different corners.
Now, over to the Bureau. Kash Patel had a very bare-knuckled exchange with Adam Schiff of California in the Senate today, and I think Schiff got the worst of that. But there's this buzz, and I talked about it with David Drucker. I don't credit it much because no one puts their name to it, but have you heard, Kash Patel messed this up, he's not up to that? It's just not true, but it's out there, nameless, formless, circulating. Have you picked it up, Bret?
Sure, yeah. I mean, there's some reporting in our circles that came from anonymous sources, but then the president kind of put a kibosh on that when he was asked directly about it. And I think Dan Bongino has talked about that storyline. But clearly there were anonymous sources, anonymous folks inside the administration and inside justice talking to reporters about the fallout, and not only this, but other things. It seems like he's on solid ground, at least for now, and I'm sure the president enjoyed that dust-up with Adam Schiff.
Now, I do remember a bureau that was very different when I worked in the Reagan Department of Justice and the Reagan White House and the Reagan OPM. The bureau was very different. It was not political. It was post-Hoover, so there was almost a reverse Hoover reaction going on then. And now I don't trust it at all because of the McCabe, Stroke, Page years. Where are you on the bureau? In D.C., not the field officers, not the SACs, although there might be some that are politicized. What do you think about the bureau?
Well, I agree with you that there have been questions based on those investigations into what we know from the Russia investigation and Crossfire Hurricane, et cetera. And we're still learning things about all of that. That leadership has obviously changed. There are very good people at the FBI. And, you know, we try to cover it, that and justice in a very straight way. We've had access and have had questions answered. So it's a little bit more transparent than it was under the last administration.
Last question, Bret. You've got friends in Qatar. You talked to the Prime Minister when you were over there in a memorable interview. And, of course, Israel struck it. I've got Haviv Rettig-Gur coming up right after you. He has raised the question about whether or not Israel is a one-trick pony. Do they know how to be wise in the use of force, et cetera? Have you heard from your friends in Qatar about the after effect of the Israeli strike on the Hamas leadership that did not work?
Yeah, obviously they're still digesting all of that as well. And I think that it has changed the dynamic. There is a lot more unity in the Gulf nations. There is less talk about, you know, expanding the Abraham Accords, and there's more talk about threatening the existing Abraham Accords. There's, you know, a real down thought about Israel's actions, specifically because they went to a target they didn't get and went into another sovereign country. So, you know, the pushback from the Israelis is that they were going after terrorists, and the U.S. does it in the sovereign nation of Pakistan, going after al-Qaeda. But it does feel a lot different, and it has changed the dynamic on the ground in the Middle East.
Well, thank you for joining me. Thanks for your coverage of Charlie, and I'll be watching Dave McCormick and John Fetterman tonight on the Common Ground segment on Special Report. Bret Baier, thank you very much. Host of Special Report Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. on the Fox News Channel.